Hello everybody. Welcome back for another challenge here on Adobe Live. I'm Evan Abrams, bringing to you a lovely video challenge today inside of Premiere. We're going to take some graphics and make them appear hand-drawn. So if you enjoyed learning about a bunch of effects in Illustrator, hopefully you're going to enjoy the effects stack we have for you here in Premiere as well. Maybe a lot of people don't touch the Premiere effects zone, but there are a lot of things there. Usually effects are the domain of After Effects, as illustrated by that pillow back there. But don't worry, there's a lot of awesome things we can do in Premiere with effects, so I hope that this opens some stuff up for you. Good to see you, Jack. Good to see you, Steve. Umacorn, wonderful. It's wonderful to see you here. Annika holding it down in the chat. And oh, Rick H, what's going on? How's everything over at the old HP centers? Keeping those computers rolling out. It's critical. Nisha, Kevin, so many great people hanging out. Ask me any questions that pop into your mind while we're here. I'm happy to answer them if I can, but I'm primarily here to challenge you. So what we're going to do is take some assets, put them over top of video, make them appear hand-drawn. If you produce such wonderful things with that, I want to see them. Share your work with me. Share them with me on our Discord. I don't know why I'm looking down at where I see the link. It's below me. Get the link in the description. Join our Discord. So tell us about all the wonderful things you want to do with Premiere, and grab our starter files. Links to that is in the description as well. Are in the description. Anyway, lots of things. Let's look at the screen. Let's get the stuff going. All right. So here we go. What are we doing? What are we making? Well, we are working our way up to getting this lovely unicorn character here into motion, right? That's what we want to make happen. Now, I'm just going to quickly render the timeline here so you can enjoy it at speed. Because we're going to be layering on a bunch of effects, you will find that your timeline can get a little bit bogged down. But this is basically the process in these few steps, right? We want to start with some elements. We are going to trim away the excess that we don't require. We are going to isolate those things, and then we will get them looking a little bit crunchitized around the edges, and then get that crunchiness to move. That's our kind of 5-step process you can think about. Now, I've gone ahead and grabbed this big old sheet of things. We come into my imported graphics here. I've got a few of them. I grabbed some banners, grabbed kind of a little sheet of illustrations here. Went ahead and grabbed another one with unicorns and ice cream. We're having a great time here. These are all from Adobe stock. Go out and grab your own if you want to follow along. But we can apply this to anything. And as you'll see, we can apply it even to graphics we generate right in here. So let's do the basic level of this thing. Step 1, we need a sequence. So I'm going to create new sequence. There we go. I'm going to go with DSLR, 24 frames a second. Doesn't matter that much, right? This is all illustration purposes, but generally you're going to want to have all of your timeline figured out, and then you'll be putting these graphics on a separate layer above everything else. Now, grab some of those imported graphics. What do you think? I mean, the unicorn is great. I kind of like these banners. Let's grab a nice wavy banner and bring that down, perhaps. So we'll just kind of, boop, drop this on down. You can see right away, it's way too big. So we want to double click on it. We want to go into our effects controls with that clip selected. I'm going to just scrunch in on the timeline here. And we're going to first go to motion. And I'm just going to scale this down a little bit, maybe move it over. And I like this one. We're going to go for that one. So I'm going to hover over, just for my own ease of use here, hover over our anchor point. You can see that the cursor turns into a little pan behind tool. Move the anchor point to be there. So now we're going to be scaling up and down from that point. Okay, that'll be good. Now, important about this particular series of graphics, we have grayscale over here, we have lighter pixels in here, we have dark pixels here. We might need to trim that up. So first, let's get rid of all the excess that we don't need. come on down to the opacity zone, grab your pen, and start clicking around really rough. You know how I am with my mats. Very, very garbagey. Just needs to be good enough to isolate the object in question. And there we go. We've got this one element chopped out. Taking our scissors and chopping away at it. Now, step number 2, we want to try to isolate this thing over top of something else. So one of the easiest and quickest ways to do that, especially with monotone elements like this, is to just use blending modes. So that you can see what we're getting into, I'm going to come back into our project. I'm going to right click, go to new item, and grab us some new color matte. We'll say, no, we're going to set the color matte to be the width and height of this project. Hit OK, and let's just make this like, I don't know, like a nice bright purple, something that we're really going to see. And I'll just name this purple. Now the point of this is that I just need to put something under here so that you can see that when we start making transparencies, we'll see what's happening, right? But this could be footage, right? So I've got some footage back here. If we come back into our project, we want to come into bring our sort of background plates. There it is. So if we want to bring some footage out there, we could put some footage under it. It doesn't matter. It could be anything at all under here. So with this thing selected, I'm going to come down to the opacity and I'm going to change the blending mode. So I could change the blending mode to a multiply, and you can see right away, hey, this looks great, right? We've got parts being transparent and we've got parts being opaque. Multiply. Yeah. We'd like to invent new language over here. Garbagey being the new one for today. So what we're going to do here is I need to dial up and down the values of this. I need to make it a little bit more binary, right? White or dark, in order to get rid of this kind of gray zone around here. So the first effect that we might look at, we're going to come into our effects. I'm going to just bring this up a little bit, bring up the effects. Look at some video effects. And what do we want to do with our effects, right? There's so many to choose from. We could come into adjust, try to adjust the levels. So I'm going to deploy a levels adjustment onto this. Now, levels is not particularly the easiest way to sort of figure this thing out. But what you can do is you can change your input black and white clips here. And you can see that by dialing down these numbers, we're pruning away the black and white levels, so you can start to clamp down on this. Now, that effect might not be exactly what you're looking for. So, for example, if you have sort of other colors in the mix and stuff like that, there's going to be other troubles to deal with. For today, we're going to keep it simple. We're able to clamp our values with our black and white levels here. So, we give ourselves a thumbs up for that. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is we're leaving it as black lines, right? And that helps because our opacity we set to multiply. Now, if we wanted this to be white lines, that's actually a pretty quick fix. We can just come in here and we're going to come in and find the invert effect. We're going to invert the channels, drop that down. And what we're going to do is under the opacity here, we're not going to use multiply. Maybe we'll use like a lighten or a screen, right? So when we invert, we have to go to a different mode of blending this over footage. That's what we want to do. So if it's white lines, you want to use additive modes. If it's dark lines, you want to use the subtractive modes. There you go. Hopefully that'll be helpful with that. Let's leave it as is. I know we're getting a lot of effects. We've got levels, we've got invert. The next kind of effect we want to drop on here, as you can see, is something to distort. So we're going to come into our video effects. We're going to come all the way down into the Distort family of products. And we're going to find in here the Turbulent Displace. Now, hopefully that's not behind my head too much. You can find it by searching Displace, and you're going to find Turbulent Displace. It's probably easier to search for Turbulent. I'm bad at spelling, so that's difficult for me. But right away, you can see what Turbulent Displace is doing. It's displacing this thing turbulently. I'll toggle this on and off and you can just get a look at what's happening. It's becoming way wavier, right? So you can really come to this with very clean vector assets or really clean lines, and this will help us kind of chop it up, try to make it seem more hand-drawn. So let's go ahead, zoom in on this. Let's really get in here and look at the quality of what we've done. And what we want to do is, let's see. I'm going to leave this as fit because it's scaled us up to where we want to be. But I want to show you the two main adjustments that we're going to be dealing with is the amount and the size. Now, obviously, there are different forms of displacement we can do. Let's leave it as turbulent, but be aware that there are other forms that you might deploy: bulging, twisting, turbulent, smooth. These are all just different procedures, different formulas that we can rack through. But the rest of the way we interact with those, that's all the same. So for example, I'm going to bring the amount, let's say the amount is going to be something like 20, right? And the size, let's bring the size down to like 10. Now you can see that this has not distorted the image so much, but is creating enough of a little crackle along the edges. And if we turn this off and on, you can see we're going from smoother to a little bit crunchier. So depending on what you're looking for and the overall scale of your image, you're going to need to dial these numbers in a little bit precisely, right? It's a bit of a game to figure out what you want these numbers to be. Now, we're actually going to do this twice. So first, we are going to deploy one to get the edges nice and crackly. That's job one. The second thing we're going to do is we are going to take another turbulent displace and put it on here. And this one is going to make bigger changes, bigger disruptions to the form. So maybe this one will be like 50 and 50, right? Or maybe the amount, I'm going to bring that down to like a 20. Maybe the size here will go like 120, something like this. So it's causing these different modes of change. So the micro and the macro, so that we're able to really amplify the way we want this to feel hand-drawn in both the way a hand would draw something on with a little bit of waver to it, especially if you're breaking up purely straight lines, which we'll do in a little bit. But the next thing we need to do, if we wanted this to appear hand-drawn and cell animated one frame at a time, it has to move. These things must move. So we are going to come into our turbulent displace. I'm going to twirl down, and I want you to come on down to evolution options. Now, we can change the evolution. If I rack the evolution through here, you're going to see that indeed the thing does change. It is in fact changing over time. And we could keyframe the evolution as well. So I'll set the evolution to be 0. I'll set a keyframe here. I'll move ahead to the end of the clip, set the evolution to be 360 perhaps, and we can play this back. Now, evolution is going to give us sort of the nearest neighbor. We are running the displacement formula through, and what's happening, as you can see, is it's undulating, right? It's having this nice smooth undulation as it goes through. And that's because the evolution is just saying, well, let's go to the next, to the next, to the next, so that we're basically changing one variable, and that variable is simply going to seem like something is processing through. It's evolving. One frame will be related to the next frame. Evolution is not what we want. We want revolution. So I'm going to come in here to the evolution. We're just going to go ahead and remove that. And what I'm going to use is the random seed. So if I keyframe the random seed, and we'll perform the same type of thing. So random seed 0, maybe bring that up to 360. It's not going to matter as much. The random seed is the random universe that this is operating in. So this is a real multiverse of madness proposition that we're basically re-rolling the dice every time we pick a new random seed, which has created this jittery madness going on here, which, is doing what we want, but we don't want that happening all the time. This is too much, as they say less. And that's what we want to do with this. So what I'm going to do is add another effect to this. Posterize time. So we're going to grab the posterize time effect, drop it on here, and we're going to artificially change the frame rate of this footage. Change it down to, say, 8. So if we render this off, we'll do a little preview rendering of this, it's not going to be rendering every frame, right? We're going to go from these things, the composition is at 24, we're going to bump it down to 8, so we're only going to be looking at every third frame, if that makes sense. Posterize time has not affected the actual frame rate of the footage, it is only changing the number of frames that we see. So here we go, we've posterized it down to 8 frames a second, and it looks wonderful. Loving it. Thank you, Wade. So, as you can see, this thing is bubbling and bumping along. I'm going to come back to that first turbulent displace, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we are indeed in those evolution options, keyframing that random seed as well, so that over the whole course of this, we go like that, 360 degrees, wonderful. And so that will also be dealing with the little boiling edge that we wanted on this. Now, maybe 8 frames a second isn't where you want to be. Maybe you'd rather be at 10 or be at 5. We can pick any kind of number that we like. But this can help you dial in the size of your disruptions, right? That amount and size of each of our turbulent displaces, a little one, a big one, then we animate them, and then we posterize that animation. So we're going from a state of chaos to a state of control, and that's precisely what we want to dial in the sort of faux hand animated look to this thing. Oh, it's looking great. It's looking great. So, like I said, we can apply this to any graphical element, any footage that we bring in, anything you like. In fact, I would recommend deploying it on some text. So we're going to grab some text, we're going to drop it down here, and we're going to say, wiggle this, exclamation point. And we could use all kinds of fonts, depending on what you're feeling. Let's see here. Let's see if I can get how large. Ooh, gotta make sure, pro tip, make sure that you select the things as you're changing them. Maybe we go for like this kind of an old-timey script. I don't know if anyone out there is playing the wonderful video game Pentiment right now, but we'll go with this, and it feels like a lot of work to go through that whole process again, but we should, right? But if you don't want to repeat the process, you can always select something, copy it, Control C, and then we are going to right-click, and we are going to say Paste Attributes. And what we are going to paste is particularly not the motion. We don't want any of that scaling, anchor point business. But we do want to add all of these changes. We don't need the levels. We don't need the invert, but we'll take all the others. We hit OK. And you can see we've got wiggling text going right away, right? So just Control Z. We're going to go through the process again so that we have it down cold, right? We got our text. We want to make sure that the text is going to be above any footage. Ooh, and wiggle me this. Could this be made into a reusable Mogurt? So the things that can actually be turned into a motion graphics template, right, really depends on what can be selected and added to it. So if we come back to this first element here, right, the things that we would want to select are these effects, right? And the trouble is that would not particularly produce the Mogurt. The Mogurt has to be created out of things that live in the essential graphics zone. Now, if we did want to make a Mogurt out of this, we can apply the exact same ideas into After Effects, produce a beautiful Mogurt in there where you can swap out the footage element, and that'll work perfectly, right? So that would be my advice on that front. Anyway. Oh, I'm getting off track. So we've got this thing. Let's apply the process running through here. So this is text. We don't need to separate it from its background. It's doing a perfect job already. So what we will deploy on here is the Turbulent Displace, a little displacement on here. And of course, the displacement numbers, we want to dial them in. That's right, oh God. I don't have my Tangent Town button on these streams. That's only for Friday mornings. So I want a small amount and probably a small size, a very small size. Let's see. Let's go maybe 10 and say 50. Ooh, let's go even smaller than that. Let's really fray the edges on this thing. Really, really crunch up the edges. Wonderful, like that. And we might as well, while we're here, let's get those evolution options, twirl into that, twirl into the random seed, setting a keyframe there, coming to the end. And this number can really be anything. It just has to be a fairly high number because we want to make sure that each frame has a separate and unique random seed. Looks like it's covered in ants right now. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. We will then take that turbulent displace, copy it and paste it. We'll alter the second one here. We'll alter the copy of it, or you can edit the first one. Depends on what order you want them to happen. Tiny then big, big then tiny. Gotta figure out for yourself which of those you like. And let's see, we're gonna bring that amount up to something like a 50, and maybe, yeah, let's go amount 10, size 50. See how we feel about that. Oh no, amount more amount. Let's go 20 and 100 like that. There we go. That's wonderful. And then, of course, on top of all of this, we will deploy the posterizing time. We're going to posterize the time, having full control over time. Bunch of time lords here. Posterize it down to 8. Render this up. Let's see how we look. Oh, I think we've done something in a bad order. We want to make sure these things are in the correct order. There we go. We got this wiggling. Now, here's where things get a little weird. Umakor, you mentioned, keep forgetting that the layering is top to bottom in the effects panel. Well, really depends. So you're going to see what had happened. If you see here, we've got motion, then opacity, then levels, then invert, then turbulent displace, posterized time, right? Under the video heading. Now over here, you'll find that these things are living actually in the graphics space. Now, Wade, back to your question about Mogerts, because these are living in the graphics zone, right? What does that mean? Well, it means we can make this into a Mogert, right? We can take this element and we can export it as a motion graphics template because these things are not living in the video space. They're living in the graphics space. So again, another tangent for us here when you're working with these things. The other thing to remember is that the order is reversed. So posterized time, if it happens up here versus down here, here no posterizing is happening, and up here the posterizing is happening. So it's that inversion of the order that's a little bit strange, right? Because it's like we're viewing a stack of objects on top of each other. All right, so we've got things wiggling. We've got our perfect text that has been turned into a bit of a handwritten stop motion thing. We've got graphics that are turning into hand-drawn stop motion things. Go ahead and combine those two ideas together, put it over some footage. That's what we want to see. Come and join us on the Discord. I want to see what kind of stuff you're making. Get your own artwork into motion. Create a little animated piece with maybe two characters talking to each other or something. Anything you want to do. That's what we want to see. Make it out of things from Adobe stock. Make it out of stuff that you've made yourself. We want you to share it with us, share it with the whole community. We're going to be talking about everybody's submissions Friday next week, so definitely get those in. Of course, you've got time, no pressure, but I love to see what people make and what you make of these streams. And of course, we have a rich, full day of things coming at you here, so I've got to head out. Paco's coming up next. He's going to be sharing some wonderful tips. Hopefully, we're going to see some of his photography, which will be great. So stay tuned for that. And of course, if you want to see more of me around the internet, you can find at EC Abrams everywhere. But I will especially be back tomorrow, where we're going to be tackling even more Premiere challenges. So tomorrow we're going to be getting into, I believe it is some responsive title design. So if you enjoyed these wiggly titles, hopefully tomorrow you're going to enjoy some more sort of uniform titles that respond to things moving around and resizing. So that's what we're up to tomorrow. Anyway, is there anything else to talk about? If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching us on Behance, definitely subscribe there. Anywhere you see these things, subscribe to them so you get more of them, and hopefully we see more of each other. Anyway, I've been Evan Abrams for Adobe Live. Thanks again for being with us. Stay creative, be kind to each other, and I'll see you all around the internet. All right, bye for now.